Hello, welcome to another episode of Lessons from a Podcaster. Today here with SaCola. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here, Tiago.
Now the pleasure is all mine. And a little bird told me that you recently got a gig because of your podcasting. You're doing voiceover for an audiobook. Is that true?
That is correct. It just happened. I just got paid yesterday to start.
Nice.
And it just so happened that I had that person as a guest on my show last year. And then I ended up reciprocating the favor, and I was the guest on her last podcast. She ended her podcast for the year and closed it out for 2023. And I thought about seizing the opportunity because I've done voiceover work in the past for my fellow entrepreneur friends. And I said, I've always wanted to do an audiobook. And then I loved her story. And I realized she doesn't have an audiobook recording. And so again, if you don't have business unless you ask for the business. So since I already built a rapport with her, I just reached out and said, hey, have you ever thought about doing an audiobook for your book? And she said, yes, but it didn't work out the first time. And I said, do you mind if I throw my hat in the ring? And so I did a recording of her first chapter and I sent it to her and she loved it. And so here we are.
And now you have a job that's really cool. That's, again, the beauty of podcasting is that we get, especially if we're interviewing people, right? It's networking. And now with technology, we don't even need to leave our house, right? We can connect from people all around the world through podcasting, and we can do this kind of networking. And this is also a great example on how you can monetize it. Now, I know that your podcast is more also around your business and helps you network. Can you tell us in like 30 seconds what your podcast is about?
So my podcast is about helping entrepreneurs, inspiring them who are inspiring themselves. Being an entrepreneur is a rough journey for physical, emotional, spiritual, physical well-being. And so my podcast is about helping entrepreneurs to work it, live it, own it in their everyday lives. And because I'm a realtor, I give them real estate insights, but I also give them the behind the scenes stories of things I wish I learned as an entrepreneur that I wish someone taught me along the way.
That's again another amazing thing about podcasting, which is it's a great excuse to keep us on our toes and always learning, right? So I have learned a lot, tons about entrepreneurship because of my podcast. Because first of all, I got to interview a lot of entrepreneurs, and as well, because I want to deliver great content, I keep researching new things to deliver. So that's again what I love about it. It's not only to make money. There's so many great things that you can take out of it, and it's great that as you mentioned, you network. You got the gig for the audiobook. Do you remember why you started this podcast in the first place?
I wanted to do it years ago when podcasting first came out, and I shied away from it. And then I thought about a way to market myself as a realtor, but in a more authentic way. Because what a lot of people don't realize, if you're just starting out in the real estate business, you're paying for leads, and that can get very costly. And a lot of realtors, not to knock it, because if that's how you get your money and your income, that's great. But some realtors pay up to 4 figures a month just to get those leads, to get started. And I said, that's absolutely crazy. I'm not going to do that for myself. But if I can create a platform, invest in myself and share my story. And that's what I did. The first episode was entitled Homeless to Homeowner. And I was sharing my story of my upbringing, how I grew up in becoming a homeowner and being able to help others who think home ownership is just a dream. And I can walk them through the process and educate them and get them prepared when they are ready, because not everybody's going to be ready right away. So that's what inspired me to do it. And I said, no one's going to be able to tell my story better than me, and no one's going to be able to market me and my business and my brand better than myself. So I invested in myself and not put money into someone else's hands to do it for me.
Wow. Yeah, it's very inspiring. And personal branding is such a great way to bring business, to grow, to network. And what was the reaction when you told that story, that very personal story, right? First of all, were you nervous to share this maybe details with potential clients?
Oh, I was scared stiff. And what I did was, the first thing I did, I told my parents, because I didn't grow up with my father. So,
Hmm.
and I was going to include some things about him in this, and then not get too personal about what happened in my journey,
Hmm.
but at least get deep enough into
Right.
it. So I asked my mom's permission, and my mom said, yeah, go ahead. Because people need to know that life isn't always easy, that
Yeah.
despite the bumps in the road, you can achieve your goals and dreams. So she said, go ahead. So I had the blessing from my parents first, and then it was trying to craft it together without going too much in the weeds, in the details. So it was very nervous. There's no video
Yeah.
on that. It's just strictly audio because I
I
didn't
can
know how
imagine.
I was going to react
Hmm.
and feel doing it. But I made it through. And I realized that this wasn't just about me. It's
Yeah.
about maybe this story can resonate with someone else
Hmm.
and let them know, hey, it's not the end. You just got
Yeah.
to keep going, pick yourself up, dust yourself off, and keep going.
And how was the reaction of people? Like, do you remember when you shared it with a few friends, and also like people reacting to it? Like, how
I
did
did.
they?
I got wonderful feedback. My friends are very gracious, and that's
Hmm.
the reason why they're my friends. They'll tell me the truth, whether I want to hear it or not. And they were all so supportive. Even some of my other family members said, wow, I didn't realize. There were certain parts of your childhood I didn't know. Even my own
Wow.
father said, I learned a lot by listening to that episode. And
Wow.
so if it gave them a little bit more insight into who I am, because a lot of times we can know someone and say we think we know someone, but do we really truly know their story?
Hmm.
And you can be related to them and they don't
Mm.
know all the ins and outs to it. So
I
I'm very grateful and honored. Nothing but positive feedback
Yeah.
from it.
It's funny because with my own podcast, the Wannabe Entrepreneur, where I narrate my journey as an entrepreneur, and it can also get too like really personal. And my father listens to it, even though it's in English, and I mean he does speak English as well, so he listens to it, and my co-founder as well. And often, like people say that, yeah, like this is a little window. My co-founder says this a lot. Like, hey, now I know what you're thinking about me, what you're thinking about like the business and everything. So it's a
Right.
great window to share this kind of thing. So yeah, it's great that you get to go this personal. And when you first started, what was your setup? And tell us as well, like, how is your setup today, how you record things, and how you then take your recording and publish it to the world.
So my setup is what you see right now. It's a guest bedroom. I have a great microphone, which I've learned from trying to do voiceover work over years. You have to have a great microphone and a nice setup, a good camera, of course, because if you're putting your stuff out there on video and YouTube, you want to make sure, most importantly, your sound quality is great
Mm-hmm.
over your video quality. I think is more important. And what I realize is there are times where I'm not able to do a video. I'm gonna still consistently show up and
Mm-hmm.
do an audio podcast every week that will air every week. So I have what you call an isolation stand to kind of cancel out any surrounding noise. Then I have a pop filter I use over my microphone, even though I have a cover for the microphone, and just simple setup, nothing extravagant. I don't have any of the boards or anything like that. And
Mm-hmm.
a program that I use, it allows me to record a video or audio. It will allow me to download separate files. So if I need to do any quick editing for audio, I'm able to do that.
Cool.
So I try to streamline it, something that's simple, user friendly, not too complicated. Because a lot of people, I can get stuck in this loop too of the shiny object syndrome. Well, I
Yeah.
gotta have this expensive lighting. I gotta get this. I gotta get that. And I was nervous about it. I felt like I needed to have the perfect setup. And a friend of mine said, if you don't just start and do it, it doesn't have to be on video. Just start. And I did. And so
Totally.
I keep it simple. I haven't bought any new gadgets in a while, so that's great.
That's good. That's good. So having a good sound, obviously, it's key. But again, we don't need to have the top notch, bleeding edge technology
No,
because there's you can do a lot with kind of cheap or cheap microphones. Um, Now, after you record and edit, you are a Podsqueeze user, right? So how do
of
you use
course.
Podsqueeze in your flow?
Oh man. Can I tell you the story of how I got introduced to Pod Squeeze?
Yeah,
Okay.
definitely. I would love to hear it.
So a friend of mine who is an entrepreneur in the UK, and I told her about my idea about starting my podcast. And she sent me this video of a lady who is a podcaster and said all the platforms she used and
Mhm.
saying, hey, you don't need to hire a production manager or a podcast manager. Here are some simple things. So that's how I got introduced. And she mentioned Podsqueeze in one of her reels. So I said, let me check out Podsqueeze and see what it's about. And then when I read of all the features that it offered, I said, okay, I'm going to try a free version. And when I uploaded an audio file and all this information popped up from show notes to timestamps, blogs, newsletters, social media captions, and I was like, what in the world? I even showed my podcast manager Podsqueeze and I said, look, I knew in my mind a couple of months down the road, I said, I'm probably going to end up not working with them because it made it so easy to do.
Mhm.
And I said, but look here, I want to share this with you because this may cut down your workflow and time.
Yeah.
And she was like, oh, I hate writing show notes. So it made it easier for her to write show notes. And I have to say, I probably still wouldn't be doing a podcast now if it wasn't for Podsqueeze.
Wow.
Because if you think about it,
Mhm.
you have to hire someone or delegate that off to someone to write the blogs, to write the newsletters, or come up with the social media captions, thinking about the timestamps when you're editing or creating short reels or video clips, audiograms. All of that is what I was paying someone else to do. And
Mhm.
it's all in one platform. And I'm not even touching on all the things that you offer in the program and on the software, but those are the things I mainly use it for. And I love the fact that you guys will reach out to your clientele, find out what they like about it, what could improve, and then you take those suggestions and you say, okay, check back in a couple of days, and boom, it's there. So I love
Well,
that.
thank you so much. It's great to hear this feedback, and that's also why we do this, right? Like we want to help podcasts to focus on what they love to do and let them a little less interesting parts to us. So I'm glad that you're a user and using it, and it's helping with your flow. Um, do you have how do you use like the content that is created? Uh, how do you use it then to spread on social media? Do you have like a preferred social media you use, preferred method to share your new episodes? How do you do that?
So I use clips and I use reels
Mm-hmm.
on Facebook, Instagram. The blog, after our conversation, I put the blog out on LinkedIn
Mm-hmm.
with a picture to talk about my journey. I started sharing it on Alignable so other business owners can see my
Oh,
blog. Because for my field of work as a realtor, I'm not one of those all in your face, ooh, talking about real estate all the time. I think
right,
it's the soft touches. I think it's getting to know the person and their journey and their brand, because the brand and you are one when it comes to
right.
business. And then they realize, oh, she is a realtor as well. But because I do drop information about real estate as well. And I think that needs to be sprinkled throughout my content and not just always there. So the blogs are important, newsletters for people who are signing up
Mm-hmm.
to get the episodes early before they are actually released. I'm
Mm-hmm.
able to do that. all because of Podsqueeze. And sometimes if I'm stuck for a caption, it's right there on the platform.
And so your main social media would be LinkedIn at the moment.
Right now it is. I put it out there on my Facebook business page.
Okay.
And LinkedIn. I just started TikTok, so I'm seeing how that goes. But I'm just mainly.
What do you think of TikTok so far?
I'm trying not to get stuck in the wormhole of TikTok, because I hear people say, "Oh, I just signed up for TikTok," and they're like, "Okay, we'll see you next year," because you can get caught into that wormhole. So what I've decided to do, I've tried to make a promise to myself, and I don't like breaking promises. I said I will upload my reels that are already there that I put on Instagram or Facebook and just put them out there on TikTok. And if people like it, great. If they don't, it's fine. Then I tested it out and I see. I also started investing more time into Pinterest because Pinterest called me and reached out to me and said, "Hey, we love your content. We think we need to see more of it because what you're providing is inspirational, motivational, and that's exactly what our viewers and content users on Pinterest want."
And there's a lot of homeowners, at least, that use Pinterest, right? Or people that are looking for houses, ideas, decoration.
Yes.
So it's definitely for you. It could be a great, social media. It's all about also seeing like where your listeners are and like trying to take advantage out of this. Now I know that you use LinkedIn, and do you have any tips for someone that is starting out? Because LinkedIn, don't sleep on LinkedIn, right? It's a good social network, and it's growing. I feel, and there's I have great engagement on LinkedIn in my posts. So, do you have any tips on how to take the best out of LinkedIn?
I would say, first of all, tell people what you do on LinkedIn. It's not just a place where you can put all your job or work experience like an online resume. So for me, when I started the podcast, I looked back at my LinkedIn profile and it said realtor, all this other kind of stuff. But as soon as I changed podcaster of Work It, Live It, Own It, it's like the floodgates just opened up. And I put more information about my podcast and what it was about. I started putting episodes, links to episodes, or even some of the reels. So I've connected with people on LinkedIn, and then I will tag them. They have tagged me back. The video clips, using the Podsqueeze video clips. And man, I'm getting invitations or questions saying, "Hey, can I be on your show? Here's what I talk about. Here's what I have to offer." And so it has opened it up a lot more. And like you said, don't sleep on LinkedIn. I even had someone contact me and say, "Hey, would you like for me to do a podcast appraisal for your podcast for free?" I was like, "Sure."
Why not? Yeah, that's
why not? You're going to do it for free. And it taught me a lot about my podcast, and it helped me to realize I wasn't getting the full reach that I should have been getting from the beginning. And I just started in May of 2023. So I switched my hosting over to them, and the analytics is great. But it was all because I switched and said, "Hey, I'm a podcaster, but I'm also a realtor." I put that up there. I'm a podcaster and realtor. But then I talked more about what my podcast is about. And so therefore, a lot more opportunities have opened up and connecting with people.
Being more verbose, being more open on LinkedIn is not anymore because before people used to connect LinkedIn is very professional and you need to always be aware. It's like your boss is always watching you. And I feel that now people are more, opening up on LinkedIn, and and it's getting great traction. So totally. I think that's a great advice. Can I ask you which host? You said that you switched hosts now, and the analytics are better. Can I ask you which host is it?
So I use Podsqueeze.
Podsqueeze. Oh, never heard of it.
Okay. Podsqueeze. The reason why I signed up with them is because they did call me. They did go over the podcast appraisal, and they told me, "Hey, you're only on 5 platforms, and there are 15 out there." I thought when I paid the podcast manager, I thought that I was on all platforms because that's what I thought I was paying for, right?
Yeah.
And he said, no, you're not. And he said, and then there's a 10 to 11 additional affiliates that kind of chime in and pull from those 15.
Oh.
And he said, if you don't do anything else, because he had another program that he was offering, he said, if you just do the bare minimum and just switch your hosting over and you'll see your real-time analytics. He said, how are you getting your analytics? I said, based on what my podcast manager is giving me. And he said, okay, just switch and try us out. Let us know. It's month to month.
Mm-hmm.
They took care of everything. I gave them the RSS feed. They took care of everything, transitioning everything over. Uploading is very simple, but the analytics is what blows me away. And
oh, that's cool.
Just switching everything over, I can see in the past 7 days, past 30 days, how many downloads, what devices they're listening to.
Yeah.
And what countries they are. And I can go by per episode or I can just look overall. So it's customizable. So I'm enjoying it so far.
Did it increase the number of downloads?
It did.
Wow. Okay.
It did.
That's really cool. That's
so I'm seeing growth.
You said.
Podatize. So I'm seeing growth. I'm seeing traction.
Yeah. Cool. I'm glad it's working out for you. And yeah, we are reaching the end of our conversation here. So let me ask you something.
Okay.
If someone would start listening to your podcast right now, what episode would you recommend them to start with and why?
Ooh. I have to look at my episodes. It was one where I talked about educating people on how to treat you right. Because I think a lot of times, yes, our clients are our customers, but we also have to have another one. It's kind of hard as a tie. It's between your core values and educating people on how to treat you right. Because you have to have core values in your business. If you don't, then you will fall for anything.
Yeah.
And then the other part is educating people how to treat you right. And that's based on your core values.
Okay.
Yeah. So,
I will link the shows, those episodes in the show notes so that people can go and check it out.
Yeah. So that the self-respect one is episode 18. And I think the core values is episode 13.
Perfect. And can you tell us again the name of your podcast and where can people find you on social media? So
it's Work It, Live It, Own It. And you can follow me on Instagram. That's where I mostly reside. And if you want to watch the video episodes, feel free to head on over to YouTube and Work It, Live It, Own It. Perfect. I will link everything in the show notes of this episode. SaCola, thank you so much for joining us here and sharing a little bit of your knowledge with us today. Thank you, Tiago, for having me.
This podcast is brought to you by Podsqueeze, an essential tool for podcasters that creates show notes, timestamps, clips, and more. Visit podsqueeze.com and use the code PODCASTER for 20% discount in the first 3 months. We release a new episode every Tuesday and Thursday. See you in the next episode of Lessons from a Podcaster.